There is one word in professional wrestling that you should never ever trust, no matter how serious the moment looks, no matter how many tears get shed inside that ring, and no matter how dramatic the goodbye speech sounds, and that word is retirement. Because in this business, retirement is not really an ending at all. It's more like a really long vacation, with a guaranteed comeback payday waiting at the other end of it. Every single time a wrestler announces they are done, every time the fans stand up and start chanting thank you while wiping their eyes, there is one thought floating in the back of every smart fan's head, which is, yeah, I'll probably see you again in about 2 years. And honestly, who can really blame us for being so cynical about it? Because the history of this business is absolutely loaded with wrestlers who said goodbye and then casually walked back through the curtain a few months later like nothing ever happened. So today, let's take a deep dive into the biggest, longest-running joke in professional wrestling, the retirement that never actually lasts. Now, if we are talking about wrestling retirements that meant absolutely nothing, we have to start with the absolute king of fake goodbyes, and that is the legendary Terry Funk. This man took his first retirement back in 1983 right after a tag team match, where he gave this emotional, choked-up speech that genuinely made the whole arena cry. People truly thought that was the end of the road for him. And then, just a few months later, he was right back inside the ring, beating people up like nothing had ever happened. And he did this not once, not twice, but at least 7 separate times throughout his career, scattering retirement matches everywhere like little party favors. Terry Funk's career stretched on for over 50 years, going all the way from 1965 to 2017. And somewhere in that incredible run, he became the literal reason why the phrase "never say never" became wrestling's unofficial motto. He treated retirement like it was a Saturday afternoon plan that could be canceled if something more interesting came up. And honestly, he kinda set the standard for everyone else who came after him. Because once you see the legends doing it without consequences, that door just swings wide open for everyone else to follow.
Why do you tell everybody you retire all these times and then you keep coming back?
Because every time, no, I'm not speechless. Because every time I retire, I mean it. It's the last time I'm going to step into the ring.
Really?
That's what it is. It's the last time I'm going to step into the ring. But then my love for the profession just enters my heart and soul again. And somebody always asks me, Terry, will you come back, please, one more time? And I can't turn them down.
And speaking of legends who walked through that door way more times than they probably should have, we absolutely need to talk about the Nature Boy himself, Ric Flair. Now, Flair's retirement back in 2008 was supposed to be the gold standard of how you send a wrestler off into the sunset. He had this beautiful, emotional retirement match against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 24. And the moment when Michaels mouthed the words, "I'm sorry, I love you," before hitting that final super kick, that is one of the most powerful moments in the history of this entire industry. Grown men were openly weeping in the crowd. The next night on Raw, every single legend you could think of came out to honor him in a tear-soaked tribute that felt like the perfect closing chapter of a fairy tale. And then, what did Ric Flair go and do? He went and signed with the rival promotion TNA and started wrestling all over again, because in his own words, he just needed the money. So all that emotion, all those tears, all that beautiful buildup was completely undone within about a year. And it did not even stop there, because in 2022, at the age of 73, after suffering a near-death health scare back in 2017, Ric Flair laced up the boots one more time for what was billed as his actual last match. Now, spoiler alert, nobody really believed that one either, but to be fair, this time around it has stuck so far. Still though, Flair gave us probably the most famous ruined retirement in wrestling history, because that original send-off was so perfect, so storybook, that watching him come back later felt like watching someone scribble graffiti on top of a masterpiece. And from one half of that famous match, we naturally go to the other half, because Shawn Michaels gave us probably the cleanest retirement story in modern wrestling, only to throw the whole thing into the trash about 8 years later. In 2010, Shawn Michaels went into WrestleMania 26 in a streak versus career match against The Undertaker. The story was simple. If Michaels lost the match, he was done forever, no takebacks, and he lost. The match itself was an absolute masterpiece, one of the greatest matches the company has ever produced, and Michaels walked away from the business with his head held high. For years, he said he was done. He swore on multiple occasions that he would never ever wrestle again. Not for any amount of money, not for any opponent in the world.
And I know, like, Undertaker's gonna be in Rumble. Will we see you wrestle again? No. Definitely not.
He even turned down a WrestleMania payday against John Cena. And then, in 2018, the company offered him a giant bag of Saudi Arabian money, and suddenly the legend known as Mr. WrestleMania was teaming up with Triple H against The Undertaker and Kane at a show in Saudi Arabia called Crown Jewel. And the worst part wasn't even that he came back, because honestly, fans would have forgiven that part. The worst part was that the match was, by Michaels' own admission, pretty rough. He looked rusty, his timing was off, and the magic of his perfect retirement story was completely shattered. It became the textbook example of why some wrestlers should sometimes just stay retired, because no payday is really worth ruining a moment that already felt like the ending of a great movie. Now, not every comeback story is a disappointment, and we absolutely have to give credit where credit is due, because some of these returns have actually been genuinely incredible. The best example of that, by a country mile, is the rated R superstar himself, Edge. In April of 2011, Edge had to retire from wrestling for real because of a serious neck injury that doctors said could literally kill him if he kept going. He was the world heavyweight champion at the time, he was in the absolute prime of his career, and just like that, it was over. He went into the Hall of Fame in 2012. He moved on to acting, he started a successful podcast with his best friend Christian, and for almost a decade, the wrestling world accepted the painful fact that Edge was done. The injury was too severe, and there was simply no way he was coming back. And then, in January of 2020 at the Royal Rumble, his music hit. Nobody believed it at first. Even when his theme song started playing, fans in that arena were looking around like, no way, this cannot be real. And then Edge walked out after major spinal fusion surgery, after 9 long years of being a regular guy at home, and he wrestled like he had never left. He hit spears, he eliminated big names, he lasted almost 24 minutes in that match, and the whole crowd absolutely lost their collective minds. That return right there is the gold standard. Edge has had injury problems since, he has bounced between different companies, but the original Edge comeback story is something wrestling fans will remember forever, because it felt earned, it felt right, and it gave us something we never thought we would get to see again. But then we have the example of someone who left the business at the absolute peak of his powers, traded the wrestling boots for Hollywood lights, and came back like a returning superhero. And that is The Rock. Dwayne Johnson quietly retired from the business back in 2004, when he was only 32 years old. He had done it all. He had won every title, he had main evented every big show, and he wanted to chase his dream of becoming a movie star. And honestly, he did just that, very successfully. But Hollywood is a tough place, and The Rock has admitted in interviews that there came a point where he genuinely missed the business that made him, where he felt the pull of the squared circle calling him back home. So in February of 2011, after 7 years away, The Rock walked back through that curtain on a Monday night, and the explosion from that live crowd is something you really have to see to believe. He went on to host WrestleMania 27. He wrestled John Cena at WrestleMania 28 in a match they billed as once in a lifetime, which by the way they then ran back the very next year at WrestleMania 29, and he won the championship one more time in 2013 by ending the historic 434-day title reign of CM Punk. The Rock's return was not really a retirement comeback in the traditional sense, it was more like a returning star coming home, but it perfectly proved a point that the wrestling world keeps proving over and over and over again, which is that nobody actually ever leaves this business for good. And then there is Brock Lesnar, who left wrestling all the way back in 2004 because he wanted to play in the NFL. Now that did not really work out for him, so he went and became the heavyweight champion of the UFC instead, which is a pretty solid backup plan when you think about it. And when he was finally done with all that, in 2012, 8 years after walking away from professional wrestling completely, he came right back to the company that originally made him famous, with all the build-up and intensity of a real prizefighter coming to destroy everyone. The night after WrestleMania 28, Brock Lesnar walked out, hit John Cena with an F5 right in the middle of the ring, and just like that, he was back. And he stayed back for well over a decade, becoming one of the biggest attractions the business has ever seen. So even when a wrestler leaves to chase another sport entirely, even when they say they are done with the wrestling life forever, the money and the spotlight somehow always seem to find a way to drag them back in. And speaking of dramatic exits and even more dramatic returns, we have to talk about CM Punk. Now, Punk's story might honestly be the wildest in modern wrestling, because the man literally walked out of the company in January of 2014, then gave a famous podcast interview where he absolutely ripped everyone in the company apart, sued the doctors, and swore up and down that he would never ever step foot back inside that building again. He hated the place. He had moved on with his life. He tried mixed martial arts, he tried boxing, he tried acting, he tried writing comic books, and for nearly a decade, he was just gone. Then, in 2021, he stunned everyone by showing up in the rival promotion, which was already a massive moment on its own. But that ended badly with multiple backstage fights, and most people figured that was finally it. His wrestling career was probably done for good this time around. And then, in November of 2023, at Survivor Series in his own hometown of Chicago, the impossible actually happened. The opening notes of his theme song hit the speakers, and the entire arena exploded in a way that you really do not see very often in modern wrestling. Even Triple H, who was running the company at the time, said this moment was something he never thought he would see, calling it a mighty cold day in hell. Punk was back, and not only was he back, but he became one of the biggest stars in the company all over again. And honestly, this list just keeps going on and on. Hulk Hogan retired and came back so many times that fans simply stopped keeping track. Mick Foley had so many retirement matches that they basically became their own running joke in the industry. Bret Hart came back. Sting kept wrestling well into his 60s. Goldberg just had his actual retirement match in July of 2025 against Gunther, but he has already retired multiple times before that, so honestly, we will all have to see how long that one really sticks, because that is just how this business has always worked. So why does this keep happening over and over and over again? Well, the simple, honest answer is money. Wrestling is a brutal business that chews up bodies, eats up savings, and doesn't always pay out a comfortable retirement at the end. The companies absolutely know that nostalgia sells, that bringing back a legend can move tickets and pay-per-view buys in a way that the current stars sometimes just can't. And the wrestlers themselves, no matter what they say publicly, very rarely actually lose the love for the business that made them. The lights, the crowd, the adrenaline of walking through that curtain, that is something almost nobody can give up forever once they have tasted it. So the next time you watch a wrestler give an emotional retirement speech and the fans are crying, and the music is playing and the cameras are rolling slowly, just remember to enjoy that moment for what it is, but also remember to bookmark it, because there is a very real chance that you are going to be watching that same exact person make a triumphant return inside that same exact ring, somewhere down the road, because in this industry, retirement isn't really a finish line at all, it's just a long pit stop. And that, my friends, is the biggest, longest running, most expensive joke in all of professional wrestling. If you enjoyed this deep dive, do me a small favor, hit that like button, drop a comment down below, telling me which comeback hit you the hardest, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns from the wild and crazy world of wrestling. I'll catch you in the next one.